In this video, I'll cover the fighter's abilities. I'll have a look into the unique features of this archetype, as well as how they are performing on the battlefield. A quick disclaimer though is that everything you see in this video is subject to change, so keep this in mind when you watch the video. We're only heading towards Alpha 2. If you see something you like, hit the thumbs up button, very appreciated. My name is Christian, and welcome to the Lazy Tavern. Let's do fighters. In Ashes of Creation, the Fighter Archetype is the melee who wants to charge into the center of the battlefield, spread horror and fight out the battle to the bitter end. The fighter will have a few defensive options, that if you combine this with the tank archetype as the second archetype, the fighter can become an off-tank for certain scenarios. If you want to go full on damage, this can certainly also be the archetype for you. So let's get started with the offensive abilities. Starting out with the single target abilities. First out we have one of the bread and butter abilities, Overpower. This one is closely connected with your auto attacks in Ashes of Creation called weapon combos, and the finisher in the weapon combo will remove 8 seconds of the cooldown. If we just have a look at this ability in slow motion, it's very clear to see how this epic badass swing is a single target ability. Not really, Ryan? Anyways, the next one is the Rupture. Rupture is a single target ability that puts a debuff on the target. This debuff makes it so that if the target moves, it will stack up bleed and after 5 seconds do a heavy damage, plus the additional damage for each applied stack. Next one is the Slow, which is called Crippling Blow. This ability will most likely be part of your opener on a target in PvP, making you able to stick to that target. Last on the target abilities we have Lethal Blow, which is an execute ability. And the designers of this ability made a neat feature where every overdamage due to the target will be converted into health and mana, making sure you don't waste your momentum on the battlefield. Momentum will be covered in the unique feature part for this archetype. For the AoE abilities, we have the equivalent of Overpower, just for multiple targets, which is called Brutal Cleave. This ability generates more momentum the more targets it hits. Next is a heavy hitter called Maim. I'll show you this first without its passive. Here it's a slam in front of you, dealing heavy damage on a medium cooldown. When it's spec'd into its passive, it becomes a projectile which will hit all enemies it passes through, and further it looks so badass. Last on the offensive list we have Whirlwind, which makes you spin, dealing damage, ramping up speed, dealing damage more frequently as you ramp up. Again, this ability has a passive you can spec into, which adds a little finisher to the end of the channeling. During this ability, you can move, ensuring that you are not fixed in position. Now with most of the offensive abilities covered, we'll move over to the mobility and utility. Since you as the fighter wants to stick to the target, there's quite a few options regarding the mobility to look into. But first, we'll just have a look in the utility part. And the first one is a utility spell that really makes you feel like the center of the battlefield, called Battlecry. Battlecry is the first one, which applies Rhylight to the caster and nearby party members, and Shaking to the enemies. Rhylight boosts your chance to trip Shaking enemies, and hence CCing them. And Shaking gives you an enemy a debuff, making you able to trip them. Knockout is the next one. Sadly, I do not have any footage of this ability, so it might be that it won't be there for Alpha 2. However, it's shown in their skill tree, so I imagine it'd be something like this. If that's not the case, at least pretty close. Blitz is the first of 3 mobility spells. This ability generates a small amount of momentum and charges it to the target. It works vertically, making it a strong tool to get to the mage or the ranger harassing you from the cliff, or cover some high ground. Same goes for Leap Strike, which can be used to cover ground as well. This ability makes you guessed it, leap to the target location. When you land, you'll snare the enemies, hit for 3 seconds. In this demonstration, please be aware that the cooldowns were set to 0 for the purpose of the demonstration. Lunge and Assault is a small dash that has some damage built into it. This can be used to quickly maneuver the battlefield and possibly dodge abilities. For the cooldowns, we have a few. First one is an offensive called Cataclysm. This ability makes you hit hard in a large area, applying Shaking to them. You can turn during the small channeling time and use your other buffs during this cast as well. A combo for the Cataclysm is to match it just before it hit with Blood Fusion, which is a cooldown that returns damage dealt as health and mana. This ability I could imagine being efficiently used as a defensive cooldown in case you go down the path of an off tank. Last cooldown is Exert, which is sort of a go all in ability. It will rapidly decline your momentum, however grant you a boost of attack speed and movement speed. It will make you immune to disabling effects while it's active, as well as breaking them upon cast. All archetypes in Ashes of Creation is expected to have some sort of uniqueness in them, and for the fighters this will be the use of momentum. So let's have a closer look at momentum. Momentum will be built up with both the active abilities as well as weapon combo, also known as basic attacks. Some abilities like Exert, Lunging Assault, and Lethal Blow make use of the momentum for their efficiency or as a resource. However, this is not enough. At all time, your momentum will affect your character's behavior with its form. So let's have a look at the forms. The forms is a passive buff that gains your scaling force depending of which form you have chosen. First is the form of Ferocity. This form will most likely be your main form, since it scales with attack speed. A cool feature in Ashes of Creation is the fact that attack speed makes your abilities perform quicker and attack swing go faster as your attack speed goes up. Next form is the form of Celerity, which grants you movement speed, making you able to move quicker around the battlefield or catch up to your foes. Last is the form of Fluidity, which award you with a disabled resistance. Personally, I'd really love if form of Fluidity awarded you with a bit more of defensive stacks to support you in the role of an off tank if you go down that path. But let's see where we're at. We're only heading towards Alpha 2, so everything can change. Quickly, a shout out to all the new subscribers who have decided to tune in. It's very appreciated. Thank you. Now with all of the abilities covered, how about we get into the fray, onto the battlefield with some fighter gameplay. So tighten your breastplate, grab your meat, and I'll throw on a montage with some rolling abilities so you can follow on. Enjoy, soldier! I hope you enjoyed this quick overview of the Fighter Archetype. If you did, stay tuned for the next one in the series of Let's Do. My name is Christian, and thank you for watching. See you again at the Lazy Tavern.